Okay, one bill a minute. It's 9:29 right now, so I'm going to actually give myself 2 minutes on this when it goes to 31. House Bill 440 is the Electronic Statutory and Non-Profits Signature Omnibus Bill. This is a comprehensive overhaul of Kentucky laws when it comes to non-profits. Supposedly it modernizes some of the laws, but it changes a whole bunch of them. It changes a whole bunch of them. Let's just look at a couple of these amendments to allow the use of electronic signatures on statutory trust and unincorporated nonprofit association filings with the Secretary of State. So now you can file with an electronic signature. Allow the Secretary of State to redact statutory protected information in filings. Establish the naming requirements for an unincorporated nonprofit association. 40 KRS statutes are changed. It's a massive overhaul. What specifically was changed? Why did they change? What happened? There's a lot of specific stuff that I'm not for sure why they did what they did. But they did it, right? 12 new sections of KRS, Chapter 273. Many new laws. Over 40 KRS statutes are changed. Over 40 of them. Should we modernize nonprofit laws? Yeah, in general, I think it's a good idea, but is that what I think they did? I don't know. They slip in lots of these secret bills and laws all the time. Another bill that changes over 20 KRS statutes is House Bill 512. Okay, so I beat the 31, so it can be 32. The Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement, aka Welfare for Tobacco Farmers Law, aka Death of the KRS 131.604 Law. So, this is the tobacco agreement, the master settlement agreement for the farmers, tobacco's industry that was dying, and so the federal government is paying tobacco farmers to find a different crop, to diversify, to find a replacement crop for their failing tobacco crops. And so basically it's free money. And this amends over 20 KRS statutes, and it repeals a KRS statute, and it's going to be effective by July 1st. Supposedly this is so that the Kentucky farmers will be able to get their money. They'll be able to get a hold of their money. Why do we have to amend over 20 KRS statutes just for them to be able to get their money? I have no idea. Why would the law prevent that? What laws were changed? Chapter 248 and Chapter 131 were that's what the chapters that they had changed. So, I'm in favor of the bill, but again, when you just have a mass comprehensive sweep the way that they do, I mean, how can you actually trust what it is that they're doing? Okay, so that's, there's more actually. 19 statutes, 19 KRS statutes, 2 new sections were created under House Bill 299. This is the 26 cent per gallon of gasoline tax floor act of 2015. They also had about 1 million tax amendment riders. So it had to do with just the gasoline tax, but they changed 19 KRS statutes. So why is the gasoline tax spread over 19 KRS statutes? There's amendments to clarify if a second property valuation administrator exam within a county is necessary. Notice shall be made by issuing a press release in that county and posting an announcement on the website of the Department of Revenue. And what does that have to do with the gasoline tax? Another amendment to allow for an authorized person other than the county judge executive to swear in a new member of the local board of assessment of appeals. So it's other people can swear in people, I guess, appointments for a local board of assessment appeals besides the county judge. I mean, they're changing a whole bunch of different laws here. This isn't just about the gasoline tax. They're changing a whole bunch of laws. So, clarify that real estate appraisers may represent a property owner in assessment appeals. Common care water transportation companies are taxed as public service corporations. They changed a lot of tax information with the so-called gasoline tax. And, this is removing incorrect formula for determining the retail price of a new vehicle. They just changed a whole bunch of things. So just talk about the gasoline tax. It was supposed to be a floor of 22 cents. It was going to drop, and then instead of it dropping, they want to save all that revenue. And so there is some truth when you put a tax on it. It never goes away. It doesn't go down. And the problem with the gas tax is that gas is getting cheaper. So that means Kentucky's not going to get all that revenue when gas was at $3 a gallon. Well, sorry about your luck, Kentucky, you know, but that's the sales tax is a percentage, and just because gas is cheaper, you're not going to get all the tax revenues that you was getting before. That's good. It's good that gas is cheaper. It's good that our taxes are lower. But instead of, you know, acknowledging that those are good things, instead they say, well, what about our tax money? We're not getting all the tax money that we were getting before when gas was outrageous. So they want to get, you know, they want to have their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to get all that revenue, but they don't want to. So, and it is a tax increase. I mean, it was a 22-cent floor, and now it's a 26-cent floor. It's at 27 cents right now. It's going to go to 22 cents. So it's a tax increase. And, you know, it goes against, like, you know, the conservative values that they say that they care about. And then all these other amendments, so many other changes. Here's an amendment to base the annual adjustment of the tax interest rate on prime rate charged by banks in September rather than October. But why? Why is the tax interest rate on September different than October? How much difference was it? How much money do we save the banks on that? Approvals of innocent spouse relief effective. I mean, I don't understand all these, you know, all these additional laws. A new section of KRS Chapter 141 establishes the apparently wholesome food income tax credit equaling 20% of the fair market value apparently wholesome food donated to Kentucky. So, require the Department of Revenue to notify licensed dealers of the average wholesale price upon passage of the act. So, a wholesale price of gasoline, so they got to tell everybody. So, I don't know. They changed a whole bunch of laws. It's a bad law. It changes too many things, and I don't like things I don't understand. Okay, so that one took longer than what I thought. But anyway, Senate Bill 186, sponsored by Julian Carroll. Fracking is now legalized. We have the legalization of fracking. Media didn't say anything about this. You know, everybody passed this bill, both the House and the Senate. And fracking, you know, has always been legal in terms of they could do it, but since we didn't have a regulatory sort of framework, they didn't know if what they were doing was legal or not legal, and so there's all this sort of gray area. But this law, Senate Bill 186, legalizes fracking. It makes a very clear application process, and very clear. You do a couple groundwater testing, and you do the groundwater testing, you could frack away, frack the hell out of the New Madrid fault line, create as many earthquakes, and poison the water supply all throughout Kentucky. In the name of progress, right? In the name of progress, we're going to just poison the water supply and have lots more earthquakes. And then we're going to cut all the social spending. So if there are earthquakes and people need some help, we're not going to have any money for the ability to do that. So fracking is now clearly legalized. It has a clear application process, a regulatory framework in which the fracking companies can apply and get their permits and start fracking away. So this fracking law, it amends 10 KRS statutes. Again, you know, new sections are created. Baseline water quality testing, and then there's exemptions from the requirements. So some people are exempt from even doing that. There's an exemption for disclosure of trade secrets. So they get to keep, you know, they get to have some secrets. Require vendors to provide information to Chemical Disclosure Registry unless protected by trade secret. So trade secrets, it seems like they're using trade secrets to not have to tell us anything. Require release by director or vendor to health professionals under specified conditions. Require release of director to deal with emergency spill or discharge. So it changes a whole bunch of laws. A whole bunch of laws were changed with House or Senate Bill 186. And overall, it legalizes fracking. This is for a big win for big oil and big gas. And it says something, delete requirement for PBA to certify landowners for purposes of giving notice, make technical corrections. So I'm not for sure that PBA is supposed to tell you, they're not supposed to tell you. Landowners have been, the fracking companies have gone up to landowners already and asked them to buy their land out from them. So they want to have, you know, big, vertical, deep, horizontal wells, and they want to be able to, you know, shoot as much, just millions of gallons of water into the ground to be able to loosen up the natural gas. So fracking is on its way. It's completely legalized now. Senate Bill 186 passed. No media attention, no fanfare, no publicity. So fracking is here. Fracking is here to stay. Senate Bill 148, the county clerks documenting mortgages and deeds without lien holders' names, super law. 8 KRS statutes are amended. It has 9 amendment riders. A new section of KRS is created, and this is an act relating to recording requirements for mortgages and deeds with retained liens. So this is one KRS that they amend to prevent county clerks or their deputies from recording mortgages or deeds with liens retained therein unless either document explicitly refers to the next immediate source of title for which the mortgage or grantee derived title to the property or the interest encumbered therein. So I don't understand what this is. You know, if you have a mortgage and you have a lien on the mortgage, supposedly you don't have to tell that you have a lien on the mortgage anymore. I don't know what this is about. You know, I'm going to take a stab at it. I'm going to take a guess. And I'm going to say that it's for the bankers. If they buy a property but there's a lien on it, then they don't want anybody else to know that there is a lien on it. Then hopefully people forget that there's a lien. I don't know what it so Senate Bill 148, it's a comprehensive super law, changes the mortgages and deeds and whether or not there's a lien holder's name is on it. The heroin bill, I talked in depth about this before, but this is the white collar mafia enrichment super law. It changes, it's 95% amendment riders. It amends 12 KRS statutes. There's, you know, $34 million or $24 million was being put for the Prosecutors Advisory Council. And so this is just the way for the white collar mafia to enrich themselves, and it's to, you know, harsher sentences for heroin dealers. Even 2 grams will get you put in prison for 5 years. And then it also has the Good Samaritan and the needle exchange too, which you know, shows that we're thinking better and more positively in the right direction about caring about people's public health, even though it doesn't go far enough. So it's more about this war on drugs. It's a draconian police state thing. It's to enrich the prosecutors and the police and for them to feel like they're doing something. And we're spending millions of dollars to do this. Meanwhile, you know, Appalachia has no running water, and there's illiteracy abound and lots of poverty. But let's just, you know, let's put all of our efforts in victimizing and criminalizing addiction. So, you know, it's well-intentioned, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. I doubt it, actually. I think it's a bunch of fascists who just want to hurt people's lives. So it's a bad bill, but it's also a comprehensive bill that changed the lots of 12 KRS statutes, 12 of them. So I mean, that's not just the penalties. I mean, and then 7 new sections of KRS was created. So what are these new sections? What are they saying? So it's really, you know, the prosecutors, they'll have a monopoly on how they interpret the heroin bill when it comes out. So it already has been, it's law today, so it's law right now. The Puzzling Bankers Fraudulent Transfers Act, Senate Bill 204, sponsored by M. McGarvey. It repeals KRS Chapter 378. Establish remedies for a creditor. I mean, this is just, I don't even understand. There's no articles written on this. The fraudulent transfers. No, you don't want anybody transferring fraudulently. But I mean, uniform, voidable, that's stealing. I mean, isn't stealing already a crime? So, you know, establish a statute of limitations for claims. So you can only have a limit for the claim, remedies for a creditor. I mean, I don't know what we're trying to do here. So confusing laws are bad. If you don't know the intent of the law, you don't know what it's about, what it's trying to do, how are we supposed to, you know, we're just supposed to just trust us. Really? Could you slip in a little sentence? Because usually it just takes one little sentence, right? Obamacare, they want to dismantle Obamacare because it says something about the states or others. And they want to define, did others mean other states or the federal government and the states? So just and others is a line that the Supreme Court was sitting debating about. So every sentence, every line, every word that's put into this stuff needs to be scrutinized. And it's not. There's not a citizen group. There's nobody actually checking, you know, Frankfurt. And there's not, we don't have like a citizen watchdog group. There's no Kentucky Citizen. And there should be. There should be a Kentucky Citizen checking out these laws. February 28th, 2015 is a Rare Disease Day law. I like this law. That was a Senate Committee Resolution 108. sponsored by S. Humphreys. Rare Disease Day. It's good. I like things that make me think. Rare disease. What are rare diseases? This is a day to think about the rare diseases out there. It's February 28th, 2015. That already passed. That was last month. And since it designated 2015, I'm afraid that it's not going to be an annual day that's going to be celebrated every day. It's just going to be designated for a month ago, but it got passed, it got signed into law after the 2000 or the February 28th, 2015 day of which it was supposed to be the law. So the 2015 part, I got an issue with it because we didn't get a chance to actually celebrate Rare Disease Day. We didn't get a chance to celebrate it. It didn't become law until afterwards, but it says 2015 is the Rare Disease Day, February 28th. And so are we going to have a Rare Disease Day next year, February 28th? The way the law is written, we won't, and we should. So, House Bill 24, this is the making of NyQuil and Robitussin and dextromethorphan illegal for minors law. So, dextromethorphan is what's in NyQuil and Robitussin, and it's the active ingredient that gives them their power. The Germans considered NyQuil their night nurse. NyQuil, whenever I've been sick, before I got health care, I depended pretty much on sleep water and NyQuil. I still use, actually, a lot of that. Those tactics. But right now, anything that has more than a gram of dextromethorphan or more of them can't be sold to minors. And while I think it's that's in general, in theory, that seems like a good idea to keep drugs out of the hands of children. This is a drug that helps people. That helps people that have a sickness. So if you're 16, 17 years old, you're not allowed to buy NyQuil. You got to find someone else to buy some NyQuil or Robitussin for you. And that's that's unfortunate for people who's not of age, but that's also sucks for adults because they have to show their ID and they have to sign a ledger stating that they're older than 18 before purchase. So every time you go to buy NyQuil and Robitussin, they're going to ID you and they're going to make you sign a ledger. So not only is it like, alcohol, it's actually, they're being treated worse than alcohol when they have medicinal value. Alcohol has very little value at all. And but they have more regulation to get NyQuil and Robitussin today. So this is a bad bill. This is a bad bill. This is the priorities, House Bill 24. This is where we're focused on. There's no running water in Appalachia. You want to talk about remedies, something that'll help people's sickness, get them some clean water. But instead of doing that, they're actually making it harder to get NyQuil and Robitussin. So, this is just it's the war on drugs mentality, and it's kind of gone astray. It's gone wrong. I think education and opportunity for everybody, and you think you're going to stop, people from abusing NyQuil and Robitussin. If you're of age, you're allowed to, buy 50 bottles of it, right? So you can abuse it all you want. And really, that's in America, in a country that respects freedom. If a person wants to, be stupid, they're allowed to do that, but it's a stupid tactic for life. And so I don't think we should be regulating people how they, run their own lives. And NyQuil and Robitussin, these are good things that they could solve 16, 17-year-olds' flu or cold symptoms. Senate Bill 117, the county attorney fees for their traffic safety programs law. So, an act relating to county attorney operating traffic safety programs. I guess before, the county attorneys would say you got to go to traffic school, and then you would be assigned court fees, and then the court fees somehow would go into the system and get knocked back out, and then they would get paid that way. Instead of going, all around that, now they're going to add fees in exchange for court costs for the county attorney operated traffic safety school programs and provide for the distribution of funds collected. So instead of charging court costs, they're going to charge fees so that county attorney can get that money right away and pay, the teacher of the traffic school, and they could get paid too. So it's a bad law. I think there's a conflict of interest. If the county attorney can get the money directly, what is to stop them from putting everybody in traffic school so they could get those fees and make that money? So I think there's a conflict of interest there. I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to streamline something, but it's a bad bill. It's a bad bill. Senate Bill 117. It could have a good intent, but there's a conflict of interest there. So, Senate Bill or House Bill 312, the government's going to get your horses and cows law. Government's going to get your horses and cows. If your horse and cows wander off and they're astray and a government official finds it, now there's a regulatory process. They get 10 days. They notify everybody. They put an ad in the paper. If you don't read in the paper, you don't hear that the county government had got your horses and cows, and after 10 days has lapsed, the government gets to keep them and do whatever they want with them. And so I think it's a bad law. That's a bad law. The government has no liability for any of the stray horses and cows that they find. So they find a stray horse and cows, they take it, they try to take it over. If they ruin everybody's, they take your property and they say it's their property, you have to fight them in court. They're not held liable for anything that they do. So this law, while giving a, sort of a pathway of how to collect the horses and get a veterinary, make sure they're healthy and everything else, and put them off to the side for 10 days, and then when you can't find it, then it goes into the government's possession. While I think all that is fine and dandy, you need some sort of regulatory framework. The fact that they have no liability, and the fact that a lot of times the government isn't very responsive to the people. This would be something on the website. All county government websites should be very informative about all the government goings on. And so if there are horses and cows, then take Breckenridge County, the Breckenridge County websites that say horse found, cow found, contact us. And the services and programs that they offer should be very clearly laid out for the public. And so if your horse or cow wanders off and someone else takes it and the county somehow gets a hold of it, you can get your cow and horses back. But I see this law being abused, and I see, government officials taking horses and cows, not putting a very strong effort to find the owners, and then keeping, the horses and cows. Back in the days of yore in Kentucky, you could shoot a horse thief. Someone tried to steal your horse, you could kill him. And there was no questions asked. He tried to steal my horse, so I killed him. So, and now it's, now the government is able to take it, and they're, hopefully, if they're an honest government officials, it won't be abused. If they're not, if they're corrupt, this law could be abused. The doctor-owned pharmacies law, House Bill 329. I don't understand what this is about, but I think it's just to sort of Jack Conway's sort of war on drugs and the pillbillies. So if there's a doctor and he's, went to medical school, started a successful practice, is making a bunch of money, and then he buys a pharmacy, there's a law that's saying he's not allowed to do that, or there has to be something that's broken up or something. I don't know. They're saying that the doctor-owned pharmacies, they're saying that it's illegal. They can't do that. Again, it's not very clear. No articles are written about this, but that's what it reads to me, that doctors are not allowed to own their own pharmacies. I can understand the monopoly sort of aspect, but again, these are pain clinics. They're trying to relieve people's pain. The relationship between doctors and patients should be absolutely private. And if a doctor was to create enough wealth where they could buy their own pharmacy, I think that's an okay. Here's a prescription. Where do I get it? Well, you just go to the pharmacy right there. We provide it right there. Yeah, there are conflict of interest. Yes, that could go astray. But again, I just don't know the intent, and I don't know what the purpose is. We got bigger fish to fry. There's no water in Appalachia, but who cares? Let's stop these doctors from owning pharmacies. House Bill 241. This is a really crappy bill. The more money for old-ass millionaire judges bill. So House Bill 241, sponsored by C. Harris, an act relating to the Court of Justice. This amends KRS 218.110 to modify the method of calculating the per diem salary for retired judges or justices called temporary active judicial service. So, millionaire circuit court judges already make $1 million over 8 years. They'll be millionaires. They make over $100,000 each one of them. And then the temporary active judicial service. So when they're a judge who's a millionaire judge who can't show up, or for some reason they're not doing their damn job, you have an old retired judge who's going to take their place. Well, they want to make sure they get paid a bunch of money. They're not getting paid enough. They don't like how much they're getting paid. I think they get paid $150 or something, but $150 isn't enough for these old-ass millionaire judges who come out of retirement to do another judge a favor, so they want more money. How much money are we paying these assholes per day? I don't know. I mean, frankly, fuck them. We pay them, the judges, to do their jobs, so they should do their jobs. If there is an unfortunate sort of, maybe they're criminals and they've been locked away, or maybe they died or something, if there's an emergency, you know, then you might have to elevate somebody else. But I mean, who's elevating this? Is the judicial system? Is this the governor? The governor gets to appoint judges, so the executive branch is now appointing the judicial branch people, and I think there should be a process for something like that. Special election to get an actual judge, you know, a sort of an interim judge until the special election happens and they actually get themselves an actual judge. I would be in favor of making, you know, if in order to be a judge, you have to be a lawyer in Kentucky. I would cut that provision out. I think if we actually had a society run by working class people, by farmers, by, you know, stockers and cashiers and, you know, people that work at car dealerships, manufacturers, working class people. If you had regular, middle, working class, poor people that had positions of power, you would see a better judicial system. Instead, you get these corrupt, you know, aristocratic lawyers who have been, you know, fucking people over for years, and then they get power, and then they, you know, they were taught the corrupt system, and now they're running the corrupt system. So I just feel like, get the lawyers out of the government. We don't need any more lawyers to be our representatives. Lawyers and politicians are notorious for being liars and unethical, and that's a fair stereotype, because many of them are liars and they are unethical. They don't produce any GDP, they don't make anything, and so really they are just there to sort of exploit people's conflicts and issues and problems and try to maximize their profits, while everybody else, you know, during a divorce case, the lawyers get all the money and nobody else gets anything else. Well, what the fuck was that about, you know? It shouldn't be like that. Lawyers make way too much money. Judges make too much money. So making sure these old ass millionaires who become judges, make sure they get paid more money than what they already get paid. That's a horrible bill. It's stupid. I don't agree with that. I don't think the Kentucky people would agree with that. House Bill 241 is absolute bullshit. But that's the focus. There's no running water in Appalachia, but let's make sure the judges who are sitting there arresting people in Appalachia for some petty drug offense and ruining their lives, make sure they get paid a pretty penny, right? Make sure they get paid all the fees and fines that they issue out to the public. Senate Bill 51 is the right to beat the shit out of mental patients law. So now, you know, the way it's worded is it's saying they have a duty to take precautions against a patient's violent behavior. But I think that's amazing. When I think about the mental health industry, it's very similar to the prison industry, very similar to the boys reform industry, orphanage. It almost seems like people just put them in a building, put them in a hole, and put them out of the way, so nobody has to, you know, see what they're actually doing and what's going on. They're notorious. Mental health places are notorious for abuse. You've seen that Jack Nicholson movie, The One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And then there's, you know, 50 years ago, Alan Turing, he was chemically castrated because he was homosexual. If you're homosexual, clearly there was something wrong with your brain, and they chemically castrated him, and then he killed himself. He, like, invented the internet or something, and they chemically castrated him because society deemed him as insane, and then they, you know, so I don't trust the fucking officials. I've seen the Stanford prison experiments. Once you say these are the prisoners, these are the prison guards, within a day, even if they're just playing around, within a day they become, you know, sadistic, violent psychos, and they're making the prisoners do all these horrible shit. And that's, I think, is the way that mental hospitals run too. So the fact that this language is saying to take precautions against a patient's violent behavior, if a patient is just violent, yes, of course you should, you know, put him down or whatever. But the it is a lot of times violence just doesn't pop out of nowhere. Was somebody jawing? Was somebody talking shit? And are they allowed to talk shit? You're allowed to talk shit and insult people and talk to them like their lives don't matter. That's insulting and that's bullshit, and people can inherently understand when you're talking below them or beneath them, and especially when it's about ruining their life. So I think that the mental health industry already has the monopoly to, you know, put somebody down anyways. It's on, you know, government property. They're the government official. If there was hands laid on somebody and they had, you know, they had an official report or something, that would be, their word would be taken over the prisoner. So the fact that we're passing another law This is the right to beat the shit out of mental patients. So mental patients are stuck in there. Now they're going to get their ass kicked. This is the focus. This is what we're paying attention to. It said something about providers using telehealth services must be authorized to perform examinations under this chapter. So, mental health industry, I think, is just as fucked as the prison industry. 1/4 of all the 21,000 people in prison are in there for drug offenses. So, we're already locking people up for stupid reasons anyways. And to think that the mental health industry is any better, it isn't. And to pass the law, now the mental health patients are going to get their asses kicked, whether they actually got mental health problems or not. And you think, you can make a person crazy. You can make a person insane. You put them in a cage, you treat them like shit, you talk above them, you ostracize them, marginalize them, talk about them as if they don't matter, you don't give them love or care, and you just want to manipulate them. They can feel that. They can feel that you're the psychopath. In fact, that's Harvey, Donald Harvey. He worked at a hospital, which isn't, not a mental hospital. It was a hospital. And he went around, killing people. If somebody pissed him off, then he would, put a little poison in their IV and then they would be dead the next day. So that was a doctor that did that. And he was out of Owsley County, Kentucky, killed like 100 people. So Donald Harvey, he was an actual nurse. And so if nurses are capable of, doing these barbaric things, to think a mental health, person wouldn't think about doing that. I think it's bullshit. I think they would. I think that we live in a psychopathic culture, and actually there's people who have morals and stand up, who are not just bossy, fascist assholes, are the ones that are sort of looked down upon. And I wish, personally, I wish there was less fascist assholes. William Glasser, he is an educational theorist, and he says that the relationships that work best are those that are not power struggles. That's a good relationship where there's not a power struggle. We all have a will to power, but you need to be able to be around people that say, hey, knock it off. Knock it off. I'm not your bitch. I'm not your slave. So knock it the fuck off. And I won't make you my bitch and I won't make you my slave. You can make your own decisions. I make my own decisions. And, if we engage in a conversation, it's more about strategy, tactics, life, stories, entertainment, building culture. So that's my 2 cents. The AT&T deregulation bill, one of the worst bills ever. We got all the poor people. We got, no running water. We got the literacy problems in here. We want to allow AT&T to not provide landline phones to the poor. So if you're poor and you're depending on a landline phone to call 911 or to call whoever you need to call in order to have an emergency, you don't need electricity for a landline telephone. AT&T, before they had to provide everybody with landline phone access, now they don't have to do it anymore. So this helps AT&T, this helps the big monopolies. It's supposed to be a modernization, but this is a lie. So this is why, while I personally, I like Allison Grimes. I think she was the queen maker and king maker for a lot of Democrats, even though she herself didn't get in there. But it makes me question, she had a modernization act for the nonprofits. And they passed, about 10, 20 sort of KRS statutes and bills. We're just supposed to trust that, what they said is what they're going to do. You should modernize things, right? If something is archaic and in the Bronze Age, we should be in the Enlightenment period. We should be past the Enlightenment. Enlightenment was like, 300 years ago. But I'd like to get to the Renaissance, wake the people up, and then I'd like to have an Enlightenment where once the people are all woken up, then we can say, well, we can do things differently. Take the heroin thing. So, they've been working on this heroin bill, all year. I think if we put the same focus that we did into the war on drugs on eradicating poverty and homelessness, we would eradicate poverty and homelessness within 5 to 10 years if we put the same amount of effort into it. But unfortunately, poor people don't vote. Poor people don't have any money. They have no influence. They have no power. So fuck the poor people. Who gives a shit? That's Frankfurt's position. That's not my position. It's Frankfurt's position. That's why they passed Kentucky House Bill 152, AT&T deregulation bill. It helps the big AT&T monopolize even more. They don't have to, offer landline phones to anybody, and now they can just focus on maximizing profits. So, 3 KRS statutes are amended. There's a new section. It also strips the Public Service Commission's power to take internet and cell phone complaints from the public, which I didn't even know that the Public Service Commission took our internet and cell phone complaints, because I have some internet and cell phone complaints I'd like for someone to hear. But they've been stripped of it. So now there's no public agency for you to go if you have, you have to call AT&T. Hey, AT&T, your cell phone sucks. Well, I don't give a shit. Fuck you. Okay, well, thanks government, for, shredding those regulations. Now I have no, recourse for, and the government should do a better job. Why don't I know about the Public Service Commission and that they had the ability to take in our complaints? So, they do this every year. They go in, they change so many damn laws. They do this every year, and there's no way anybody's reading all these bills. Even the senators and the representatives in the House didn't read these bills. So if the legislators who pass these laws aren't reading the bills, who is reading the bills? I mean, who are these bills for if nobody's reading them? Senate Bill 78. This bill is sponsored by Jay Carpenter. This is the let tow truck drivers steal the stuff out of your car law. So, okay, I got pulled over in Bowling Green in Warren County because of a library book, and they took me to jail. I had parked in a parking lot, and he said that he could have towed my vehicle if he wanted to be a dick. Well, I mean, he took me to jail for a library book. He was already being a dick, but he wasn't extra dickish, right? And so he let me have my truck sitting in the parking lot. And he didn't tow my vehicle. If they towed my vehicle and, I wasn't able to pay the fines, they could take items out of my truck inside the cab and they can sell it and use that in order to pay for the fees. So tow truck drivers, it's a racket anyways, over a library book, and now I have to pay $300 tow fees and $100 bail, go to court, do all this fucking bullshit. John Oliver actually just did a good thing about municipal violations. You're wealthy and rich, and you steal, a library book, here's $100, who gives a shit, go about your day. But if you're struggling and poor, you have to go through the car wash. And so the Senate Bill 78, it says that to amend KRS 376.275 relating to the towing and storage liens on motor vehicles to allow the sale of a vehicle's contents to satisfy a lien for towing and storage charges. So you can sell the stuff that's in the vehicle in order to satisfy a lien for towing and storage. So they stole your car. They're charging you for towing it. They're charging you for it sitting in their parking lot, $30 a day or so. And if you can't pay it, then they say, well, we're going to sell the stuff that we found inside your vehicle. So they're stealing your car. They're stealing all the stuff inside your car. And they're selling it to supposedly pay for these fees that they put on you. So, I mean, it's a hell of a racket. They are allowed to legally, that's Grand Theft Auto, and it's, theft of all your stuff. And because the government's doing it, the Senate Bill 78, sponsored by Jay Carpenter, passed by Democrats and Republicans alike, are now allowing tow truck companies to steal your stuff in order to pay for the fees and markups that they charge. There should be consistent rates. How much is storage fees? Is it $20 for one tow place and then $50 for another tow place? And they charge $80. I mean, I had a tow truck and they charged me $80 to drive 30 miles away. And to come 30 miles and drive 30 miles away. $80, right, to get me to my destination. Now, that's not what tow trucks do now. They'll go shorter distance, charge you $300, charge you $50 a day. And then you have to pay, hundreds of fucking dollars for shit that didn't even cost that much amount of money. This is a racket. This is absolute bullshit. The original, offense, I don't know what the library book thing, that's, a $20 library book, and now it just accrues and just gets bigger and bigger, and then people, well, you should have returned. I don't even know if I didn't return the damn thing, so I'm innocent until proven guilty. And to sit there and say that I have I deserve a $500 fine and my entire fucking world to be turned upside down over a goddamn library book, that's not justice, that's not fair. But that's the thing, is Kentucky justice system doesn't care about justice. It's an injustice system. So it's only there to put power on other people. And you see it clearly. I mean, they just had two people that ran away from them. So the prison inmates are running away from, the jailers. And then you had, the Bonnie and Clyde, right? So whenever you get like a real criminal, someone who can actually, do damage and hurt and harm something, you see these incompetent sort of buffoons in these official capacities, they can't do shit. But if you're able to find someone who is trusting of others, who believes what others say, who's obedient, who has no power to do anything about anything, they will fuck them over. Not because they did anything wrong, but because they can bully them and push them around, and then they feel like they're in charge. I'm in charge because I made you, shut your damn mouth and take off your clothes, and then I felt you all up. Louisville jailers, they like to stick their finger in your butthole. Right? That's sexual assault, but because it's the government officials doing it, then it's acceptable. Just like Samantha Ramsey, just like Leon Brackens. They can murder you, they can rape you, they can steal your car, they can steal your stuff, but because they're the government, they're allowed to get away with it. And that's absolute bullshit. We need to start actually caring about true justice and truth. We should care about the truth. And we should, not be making people's lives more difficult just because Frankfurt wants to pass some, banker bills or whatever. So, allow for the return of some personal contents upon the request of the owner. So some of the personal contents can be requested by the owner. Who knows if they'll actually get it. And then the storage or towing company is not responsible for contents to which it did not have access. They're allowed to take your stuff, but if they couldn't have access to it, then they're not responsible. Of course that's true, but see, that's a horrible fucking bill. It's a shitty fucking bill. Mental patients are going to get their ass kicked. The tow truck drivers are going to go around robbing people. The AT&T monopoly is allowed to, run roughshod over everybody. These old-ass millionaires are going to get paid. The doctors can't own pharmacies. Government's going to steal your horses and cows. The county attorney is going to make sure their fees, they get paid for their traffic safety programs. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. The fraudulent transfers bill, the heroin bill, the legalization of fracking. This is what we're focused on. This is what Frankfurt was focused on. My God, we have real significant issues in Kentucky, and we're not even touching it. We're not even getting close. We're not even scratching the surface to solving, the perennial and institutionalized systemic problems that Kentucky has been having since 1774. The prohibition of healthcare providers soliciting business from those injured in car accidents law. I'll just talk about a story with this. I was involved in an accident in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was a passenger side of my friend. My friend makes a left turn, so he did cut in front of the person, but the person had time to stop, but they didn't stop. Instead, they honked their horn because they're an asshole. And instead of actually stopping the vehicle, they had a moment to stop. Instead of doing that, they was saying, honk, get the hell out of the way. You're a big-ass car in my way, and I'm going to honk the horn so that way somehow you magically are just lifted up in the air, and then I could go right underneath. No, she went with her asshole, inclination first instead of actually being preventive and a defensive driver. She had time to stop, and I'm on the passenger side, so I saw her come right at me, didn't try to stop, didn't try to do anything, and luckily it was only 20 or 30, miles per hour. It did shake me up, it hit me off to the side like this, and so I went to the hospital, got my neck checked, and my, made sure there wasn't any concussions or anything like that. But there was a guy that had given me a slip, and he had said that, I could get the personal injury case, I could get the hospital trip cost recouped. And that's awesome. That's amazing. Before I didn't have health insurance, they wind up, charging me like $10,000 to get a CAT scan and all these other, fancy schmancy things. And I'm glad that guy told me that, because if he didn't tell me that, then I would have been stuck with all these horrible hospital bills, and I was the passenger side. I didn't do nothing. Even if my driver was responsible or mostly responsible, I didn't do anything. And so I'm glad that person had actually notified me about it. I don't think they was doing anything illegal or anything wrong. If anything, he just kind of helped me out. He kind of give me some information. Here's a piece of here's your rights, and here's a person you can call in order to make sure that you're taken care of. And so I like that. But this here, sponsored by J. Gooch Jr., and R. Benvenuti III. House Bill 153, this sounds like it's trying to stop people from doing that. I understand that healthcare providers, doctors shouldn't go around giving vouchers out But lawyers, I think that's not a bad idea. That's a smart tactic, actually. If a lawyer happens across a scene of an accident and they give their card or their brochure, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so what they're saying is that a healthcare provider cannot solicit a person involved in a minor vehicle accident. So I don't know if that's a problem. That's a big ass issue. You got a bunch of doctors and nurses who's going to car accident scenes and saying, hey, you need to get you this help and that help. In fact, you want a doctor and a nurse on the scene. And if their, assessment is that you need care, I would trust a fucking doctor over one of these, I respect the position of EMS workers and fire fighters, but a lot of times they get this fucking cop mentality and they just are psychos and they don't give a shit. I got my ass kicked by the LMPD and the EMS guy sitting there laughing at me that I got my fucking nose broken. That's fucking hilarious to an ambulance guy. Well, I'm sorry. I want my ambulance people giving a shit if I'm, healthy and well. You don't go to a scene of a crime where an assault had taken place for no reason and then laugh at the person who got fucking injured. And then throw them in jail so they get fucking raped. And I've had no satisfaction out of this. I deserved an apology and my medical bills paid. None of that has happened. But the EMS, he got to fucking say a couple jokes about me. He got to laugh in my fucking face and then say, hey, why don't you just fix it yourself? So he wanted me to fucking re-crack my nose back into the right spot, right? He thought that would have been fucking hilarious if I'd fucked up my face even worse. But he wasn't about to do a goddamn thing. And they charged me like $200. $200 to drive 10 fucking blocks and get made fun of by an EMS worker. So if you're going to ask me if I would rather have the police on the scene, the EMS worker, or an actual licensed doctor telling me what, health services I need, give me the doctor. Give me the nurse any day of the week. So this is it's a bad fucking law. It's a bad law. It goes against it goes against common sense. It amends Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, lots of changes. They repealed KRS 367.409. They amend all these things. They add all these things. They add a definition of insurer, add a definition of solicitation, a communication made for the purpose of obtaining a release from tort liability or PIP claims from a person involved in a motor vehicle accident, prohibit an insurer from seeking to obtain a release from tort liability or PIP claims within the first 30 days of an accident. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I don't know the point of this. It's a bad law. It's another bad law. And last but not least, this is probably the best one. I covered more laws in this video than all the other ones. And I'm also going to post this. It'll probably be just quicker to read all of it. But if you need someone to read something to you and tell you out loud, there's a video that accompanies it too. So the real estate and mortgage loan must cover all interest rate modifications law. So amend KRS 382.520 to provide that a loan secured by a real estate mortgage shall secure payment of all interest rate modifications rather than interest rate reductions. So if you get a mortgage and you have a variable interest rates and the interest rate goes up, that mortgage has to cover the increase of interest rather than just interest rate reduction. So this is bad for mortgage companies, bad for house,